I would like to call to order the Fraser Planning Commission regular meeting today, Wednesday, October 27th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. May I have a roll call, please? Begin with those who are coming in remotely. Margaret, your microphone is off. And Sam.
Sam Brewer.
Okay. Margaret, are you able to open up your mic? Here we go.
There I am.
There you are.
I
Okay.
am. I have laryngitis too, so I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right. Hopefully you won't have to talk too much.
Philip Vandernell. Bob Ganesi.
Katie Souls. Do I have a approval of the agenda?
Move to approve the agenda. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Carries. Now I need an approval of the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from our September 22nd meeting, as well as the annual approval of our 3-mile plan.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And Commissioner Parnell Quinn has just arrived. All righty then. So I am going to I'm going to set the ground rules. I get to be commissioner tonight because our usual commissioner was not able to attend. So first of all, we've had some challenges lately at our meetings and in general as a culture with civility. So I'm going to review our civility ordinance that we passed a few years back, just some key points. So it's basically our rules for behavior here at the meeting. So our rules of decorum at public meetings. The Cliff Notes version, we treat everyone courteously. We listen to others respectfully, exercise self-control, give open-minded consideration to all viewpoints, focus on the issues, and avoid personalizing debate, and embrace respectful disagreement and dissent as democratic rights that are inherent components of an inclusive public process and tools for forging sound decisions. So those are rules of engagement. If this evening, the way this is going to roll, for one, we'll have it set up. So I'll have Catherine Trotter do a presentation for the town. And then the applicant will make their presentation. Then it will be time for the planning commissioners to ask questions of the applicant. During this process, there's no room for engaging dialogue. If you wish to speak, you need to address me and ask permission, or I will recognize you as a speaker. And then we'll open up our public comment. We have 7 letters that were received recently that I will read, and there's one that was already in our board packet that was mailed in by Deb Schulman. And then we'll have a chance, we'll close the public comment session once everyone has had their chance to speak, and I'll ask that people keep their comments to 3 minutes in terms of the public. And I would hope that all of you have signed in. And when you do get up to make any comments, please introduce yourself and say generally where you live. We don't want your street address. Okay. Do I have a motion to open the public hearing?
Second.
All
So
in
moved.
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing opens at 6:35. Catherine Trotter, Town Planner.
Thank you, Katie. My name is Catherine Trotter. I'm the town planner, for those of you I haven't met. And I want to set the record that proof of publication was in the newspaper 14 days in advance of tonight's hearing. And we also have received notification from the applicant that adjacent property owners within 200 feet of the subject property were notified via certified mail, return receipt requested. And those are right here for the record. So tonight we are having a public hearing on the preliminary plat and final plan amendment for the Willows Apartments at Graham Park. And that's planning area 2W.1 and 2W.2. The applicant is Graham Park Development, and Clark is in the audience, as is his planner from Terracina Design, Layla Rosales. And can you please put up that email? It was, the attachment was map. Please. The colored rendition. So I'm just gonna go ahead and start while Sarah's trying to find that. I think you downloaded it to the desktop, but I also have, a part of the Graham Park PDD is on the easel behind Kent and Katie. But I did enclose in the packet the Graham Park Plan Development District that was approved by the town and recorded in 2005. I wanted to show you this sheet, which is sheet 6 of 11, and this is the land use plan. So Graham Park encompasses just over 1,300 acres. And the 1,300 acres are divided up into different planning areas. And this land use plan has a site data chart, which describes the planning area, the average density for that planning area, and the land use entitlements associated with that. So that would have the residential units allowed, the lodging units allowed, and also the commercial square footage allowed for each planning area. There's also another page within that 11-page document that talks about the development standards for each planning area. And when I say development standards, I'm talking about the open space requirements per that plan for that planning area, the front, rear, and side setbacks for that planning area, and also the maximum height that's allowed in that planning area. So I wanted to mention too that, again, this is a recorded document that is at the courthouse. And another document that we're going to be talking about tonight is the 2003 annexation agreement. That is also a document that governs this property and is recorded at the courthouse. And these documents do show up on the title commitments when people are interested in buying property. So I just wanted to make the public aware of that. So the portion of the Graham Park PDD that we're looking at tonight is this area here, which is 2W. And the acreage of 2W, planning area 2W, is 33.8 acres. And the allowed land use per the Plan Development District is 150 detached residential units, 100 attached residential units, 278 lodging units, and 30,000 square feet of commercial. And that's on the 33.8 acres, which is a density, average density allowed of 7.6. So a portion of planning area 2W has already been reviewed and approved by the town of Fraser. And that was a final plan that we looked at years ago for the Willows for phase 1, 2, 3, and 4. And phases 1, 2, and 3, or filings 1, 2, and 3 of the Willows have been recorded, and those lots have been built on. There was a filing 4 that was part of the Willows that was approved by the town but not recorded. And a portion of this area that's proposed to be the Willows Apartments is where a part of this, or all of filing 4 of the Willows was located. So filing 4 of the Willows is going away, and in its place is this proposed development. So this is actually an amendment to the final plan. And it's a second amendment to the final plan because originally final plan for 2W showed 70 lots, and then it was reduced to 67. So that was approved back in 2016. So that's why this is labeled, what we're looking, not this one, but the next one is final plan amendment 2. The other reason why we included, or the applicant included, filings 1, 2, and 3 of the Willows in this amendment is because there was a lot line adjustment for lot 25 and 26 in the Willows filing 2. So this application anticipates 204 apartment buildings. I'm sorry, units. And in order to get that density, which between what's already existing and platted in filings, the Willows filings 1, 2, and 3, plus these 204 units, that brings the number up to 259. And the applicant is asking for a density transfer, which is allowed per the 2003 annexation agreement. So they are requesting that 9 residential units be transferred from planning area 5W to this planning area, which is 2W. The 5W planning area is the area around Elk Creek, and the Plan Development District entitlements allow for 100 units. 70 of those have been platted and accounted for in the final plan for 5W. And they're asking, so there's a remainder of 30 units that are left in 5W, and they're asking for 9 of those to be transferred to planning area 2W. I can see that you're all tracking with me. So there is a section on sheet 3 of 11 of the PDD under the land use and development notes. And that says the following: planning area 2W is comprised of 33.8 acres on an upland on the west side of Cousins Meadow. The area is adjacent to the railroad served by Old Victory Road and Grant Park trail systems. This area has views of the meadow and the divide. A series of ponds and wetland related landscape may be utilized to transition to the pasture condition of the meadow. The architecture will draw from traditional forms and materials of lodges and residential neighborhoods. And within this planning area, I did discuss what the entitlements are, but the development standards for this area are, again, suggest a mixed use land use with a 75-foot maximum height, 0 setbacks for front, side, and rear. 10% open space is required within this planning area 2W, and there is also a 15-foot improvement and a 20-foot building setback from Old Victory Road. So in the project narrative, the applicant is proposing 204 unit for rent multifamily residential in a community to be constructed in 2 phases near Old Victory Road and Mountain Willow Drive. Phase 1 includes 132 for rent multifamily units and a clubhouse, and phase 2 includes 72 for rent multifamily units. And there's been some discussion or some mention that HUD might be involved in this project or HUD financing, but there hasn't been a whole lot of discussion on what this product is going to be like, whether it's going to be workforce or market rate. And I'm hoping that the applicant will be able to expand on that during their presentation. So per usual, we did send this development application out to review agencies and utility entities for outside review comments. Those comments that we received from those entities were included in the packet. The applicant will need to address outside review comments from CPOC, Colorado Parks and Wildlife, Excel Energy, and Mountain Parks Electric. There are also review comments in the packet from Town of Fraser Public Works relating to utility and construction standards. And Merrick and Company is the engineering company that we outsource this to. And they have provided drainage and utility engineering comments as well. So as it relates to some of the planning challenges, there needs to be a land use table added to the plats, and that table typically would include the land uses, approximate acreage of each land use and percentage of each land use, total acreage and square footage of property, total number of lots, maximum number of each type of dwelling units proposed, parking, and average density per acre. The applicant needs to add Old Victory Road building and improvement setbacks to the plat in accordance with what I had just said. And that information is a requirement on the Grant Park PDD. And for consistency, it makes sense to use similar language that's used on the final plan. Clarify plat note number 10, all the setbacks are 0. And again, for consistency, use similar language that is on the final plan. For the final plan, clarify note 6, and that's in regard to the density transfer. There's a plat, I think there's a note on there now, but if we could get it documented that that's the 9 units are coming from planning area 5W, and that now accounts for 79 of the 100 units that are available to be platted in 5W, with 21 left to be platted in 5W. On sheet 12 of 14, do you note that the bus stops are either existing or proposed? Another part of this project is there's an existing ditch, Cousins Ditch, that runs through this property, and that needs to be realigned. We did receive a letter from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They have approved that realignment. That documentation was in the public comment section of the packet, but it was also, there was information that the applicant had provided as well. There needs to be an emergency turnaround easement at the end of American Willow Drive, and that's per our code section on horizontal alignment. This turnaround would be outside of the plat boundary, so we need to have a separate easement that will be recorded in conjunction with the final plat and the subdivision improvement agreement. The public transit plan included in this final plan needs to be amended to conform to the transit plan that was approved as part of the final plan for the Willows, which is planning area 3WC. And the applicant needs to confirm that the exterior lighting is dark sky compliant. I did put a link in there to the parking regulations. For multifamily, 1 bedroom, a 1 10 by 20 space is required. For a 2 bedroom, 1.5 spaces are required. And for 3 bedrooms, 2 spaces are required. And it does appear that the applicant has met and exceeded the parking requirements. There was also some attorney correspondence in the planning commission packet. There was one letter dated October 1 from Whitmer Law Firm that had indicated to the applicant that the staff was going to recommend denial of this development application unless certain matters are corrected. And we gave the applicant an opportunity to resubmit the development application addressing these deficiencies no later than October 14th. And we didn't receive anything from the applicant by the 14th. We received a letter from Scott Albertson on the 15th of October addressing or having a response, I guess I should say, to the Kent Whitmer letter. But in the briefing, there's language that's taken from the October 1st Kent Whitmer letter that talks about the deficiencies that remain unaddressed. And those are the following. The portions of planning area 23W included in the development area of the preliminary plat and the final plan, which is the final plan development plan, must be removed to preserve Cousins Meadow open space in accordance with the annexation agreements and the plan development district plan. Number 2, the area shown as 2W.3 I'm sorry, can you put the final plan, the boundary plan on now? Page 4. Not the one I just emailed you about. Yes, thank you. The area shown as 2W.3 and 2W.4 on the final plan must be removed because they are not part of the current development application plan, and they will not be approved as future development sites until actual development plans consistent with the Plan Development District Plan are submitted. Number 3, Graham Park must agree to provide a dedicated right-of-way for and construct Old Victory Road from the existing terminus at Mountain Willow Drive to Graham Park Drive as part of the subdivision improvement for this project. The timing for completing certain segments should be addressed in the subdivision improvement agreement, or the SIA. Graham Park must agree to construct the Highway 40 sewer crossing to provide the capacity necessary to serve the Willows Apartments as well as future developments. The proposed Willows project will exceed the capacity of the current system. Construction of these sewer improvements must be included in the SIA or subdivision improvement agreements or in a separate improvement agreement, and must be completed before any certificates of occupancy will be issued for the Willows Apartments. So staff and legal counsel have the following concerns with this application. So in summary, just to reiterate what I just said, improper inclusion of 23W in the development plan, improper inclusion of 2W.3 and 2W.4 into the development plan, lack of commitment to dedicate Old Victory Road right-of-way, and lack of commitment to construct sewer crossing and improvements. And based on these concerns, staff is recommending the Planning Commission push this up, which the code allows for. So push up this preliminary plat for review by the Board of Trustees, which is being scheduled at the next meeting on November 3rd, and that the Planning Commission will recommend denial of this final plan and preliminary plat by the Board of Trustees. And there is a resolution indicating as such in the packet. And that concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Catherine.
Does the commission have any questions, or we're good to?
For Catherine? Okay,
I don't quite understand the 23W, why it can't be brought into the apartment area.
this is a question.
This is a question to Catherine. Yeah.
I think I'm
Why
gonna
is-
hand that off to you, Kent.
And why is that not okay to do?
Commissioner, it's contrary to a number of provisions in the 2003 annexation agreement, which I could drill down on if you'd like.
Sure, I'd like to better
Sure.
understand it.
So I noticed that in the applicant's packet that there was the response page or a concern page that I outlined. And then there was the responses back from the applicant's attorney to our concerns. And there was subsequent correspondence after that. And maybe if I just read that into the record, that would probably be the easiest way to go about it. After laying out those initial concerns, Parnell, I responded today, actually, to Mr. Albertson, and he asked that, basically their position is that if it doesn't say anywhere in the annexation agreement that you can't include 23W in a development planning area, then you should be able to. That's how I understand their argument, and I'm sure they can correct me if I'm misstating it. So Mr. Albertson asked me to point to specific provisions in the annexation agreement or the 2005 PDD that would preclude the inclusion of portions of planning area 23W within the FPDPs or the plats. And I agreed with him that there are not specific provisions that expressly prohibit it. However, there are not any provisions that expressly permit it either. So you have to look at the documents as a whole and try to interpret the intent from those documents. And if you look at the documents in the PDD as a whole, it's clear that the intent was to preserve as much of Cousins Meadow as possible, which is designated as 23W.
Correct.
So if you start taking encapsulated portions of 23W and enclosing them in development planning areas, you're taking away from the intent of the 2003 annexation agreement and PDD. So I pointed out to Mr. Albertson that in the original 2003 annexation agreement in section 4.1, that provides that the proposed land uses within each planning area are going to be specified on the PDD. And the proposed land use for planning area 23W is defined on the 2005 PDD as 468.1 acres of open space and development, including the planned golf course, Cousins Meadow, Elk Creek Meadow, and Leland Creek. So they define the land use as meadowland,
Right.
essentially. And then the planning area 2W is defined as a development parcel. That's where the Willows application is going to be located, as defined on the PDD as 33.8 acres. So planning area 23W shown on both the 2003 and the 2005 PDDs. And both of those PDDs show and account for the acreage in 2W and 23W separately. So that's indicative that there's not supposed to be a melding of those two planning areas, that they're kept separate and apart for a distinct reason. And so if you look further in the annexation agreement, look further onto the 2005 PDD, in particular, note 2, it defines open space as areas like portions of Cousins and Elk Creek Meadows and other appropriate open space. Additional open space is required within each development planning area. So we're not talking about using 23W there. That specifically says, developer, use the land in your planning area for open space requirements. Further, the 2005 PDD defines planning area 2W, again, as 33.8 acres, but then it goes on to say, and this is telling, it's on the west side of Cousins Meadow. This area is adjacent to the railroad, served by Old Victory Road. You look on the map, you see where it's at. It's that brown
Mhm.
bubble. It's right up against Victory Road.
Right.
23W is not up against Old Victory Road in that location. So you go further into the annexation agreement in section 10.10, and that provides that the open space parcels designated as Cousins Meadow and Elk Creek Meadow are to be placed in conservation easement. So there was an intent there to keep the meadow, as much of it as possible, preserved for the dedication of a conservation easement. There's not contrary language in the PDD or the annexation agreement that would indicate an intent to do what's being proposed here.
Okay.
In fact, there's contrary language.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Whitmer. Okay. Any other questions from board members? Okay, Margaret or Sam? Okay. Now I'm going to open, no, now I want the applicant. You can't. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Layla Rosales with Terracina Design. I am going to do a couple of things here. I'm going to get this up on Zoom. But while I do that, I know Scott Albertson is on the Zoom call, and it might be appropriate, being the information that Kent just provided and it's fresh in everybody's mind. If Scott, you have any response to the information that Kent just provided? I'm putting him on the spot here. Just saying. See if he's listening while I'm putting this on.
Yeah, okay, I'm here. Does everybody hear me?
Yes.
I guess the only thing that I would say immediately, and I've got the documents in front of me, is there was no reference to note 16 in the 2005 PDD. Note 16 states, with respect to all of the planning area character descriptions, descriptions for Grand Park planning areas are a reflection of the vision for the project based on the land use. The character descriptions are a guide and may change based on market conditions and other factors that may affect the land use mix, intensity, and design of the planning areas over the projected 25-year development period. So there was a recognition in 2005 that in 2021, things might be different than they were in 2005. The other point that needs to be made, and actually Mr. Whitmer agreed with me when I responded quite quickly to his email that he just summarized to you today, that the controlling factor in determining planning in Grand Park is not the acreage of the planning areas. The 33.8 acres in planning area 2W, the 438 acres in planning area 23W, the acreage in any of the planning areas in Grand Park is flexible and is not the controlling factor in determining planning, and that is specified specifically in section 4.3 of the annexation agreement. Section 4.3 of the annexation agreement says the PDD has not been configured based upon surveyed acreages for the various planning areas. In the event the boundaries of a planning area are adjusted at the time of subdivision or FFDP, then the approved number of residential units and the approved commercial square footage provided for in the 2003 PDD shall be the controlling factor, and the designated acreage or density will be adjusted from that consistent. So the 33.8 acres as specified in the 2005 PDD for planning area 2W is not the controlling factor. What is controlling is the number of units permitted in that planning area, the number of lodging units permitted in that planning area, and the number of the amount of commercial square footage specified in that planning area, recognizing that within every planning area in Grand Park, there is a right on the part of the property owner developer to transfer density to up to a maximum of 30% of the receiving planning unit area. So for example, in planning area 2W, if there is a maximum or a specified number of residential units within that area of 250, that number can be increased by the 30% factor to 325, an increase of 75 units. So the point being that the controlling factor is the development allowed, the units allowed within each planning area, not the acreage, number one. And number two, there's a recognition in the PDD that what was outlined and what was defined as bubbles in the PDD in 2005 would be adjusted based upon market conditions and factors that came into play and were recognized thereafter. So that is what I'd add at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Albertson.
So I have a follow-up question. So if we changed
No,
our,
we're not doing questions right now, but write down your questions.
Okay.
Write down your questions. So we
I
can
got it.
save it for afterwards. Thank you. I want to keep this ball rolling.
All right. Thank you, Scott. So I'm going to actually kind of take a step back here for a minute, and I'm going to talk you through the plan, talk you through what it is we're proposing. I get to do the fun stuff. That's why I'm not an attorney. And I also get the pretty pictures. So what I'm showing tonight on the screen is the packet that's in front of all of the commissioners that are here today. So you can either look on the screen or follow along with the paper copy that I provided, or that Clark provided. So the site plan, kind of the first sheet that you're looking at here, the plan is just kind of showing all of the meadow, showing the site where it is. I mean, I know you know where it is, but it kind of gives you a little bit more context around all of the development and the home sites that exist within the meadow, as well as, I think, kind of demonstrating that there's a lot of green on this picture as far as the conservation of that meadow. So I think that that's something to kind of look back to as we proceed through this subdivision, this plan. So here's a site plan of what we're looking at. We are looking at, as Catherine said, 204 units. We've got two types of buildings here. We've got a building that has 18 units and a building that has 12 units. So you'll see the smaller buildings that are kind of in that lighter beige color are the 12-unit buildings, and the darker gray, brown color, I guess I'll call it, are the 18-unit buildings. We are looking at about 35% one bedrooms, about 50% two bedrooms, and 15% three bedrooms. I think that totals 100. I did math on this. And we do, as Catherine said, we meet all of the parking requirements, all of the open space requirements, basically all of the development standards and criteria around both in the PDD and in the UDO, or the code. We do meet all of that as it relates to this particular plan that you're looking at here. These will be market rate for rent apartments. And in addition to the apartments that you're looking at, we are providing a fair number of garages or for parking, as well as a clubhouse and pool, which I'll get into here in a minute and show you some of the amenities that we're looking at providing for this community. I think one of the things as you look at this plan that really stands out for me is the way that it's kind of configured and oriented. We did try to kind of keep everything away from the existing homes. We tried to provide a meandering edge so they're not looking at a wall of apartments. We've kind of tried to provide a nice edge and buffer kind of on all sides of this, which we think works really well. I think it fits in really nicely with the character of this community in just the way that it's laid out, the way the buildings are going to be. We've got small ones and big ones kind of intermixed. So I think that really will be actually a really neat looking community in here. And let's see, so building height, as Catherine mentioned, 75 feet is what's permitted in this planning area. These buildings are 41 feet in height, just for everyone knows for reference. And one thing I forgot to mention though, and this says at the bottom, we are going to actually rebrand this. So this will not be called the Willows Apartments. When all is said and done, we'll come up with a brand for it. So by the time we come back for final plat, we'll probably have a little bit of a different name for it. So just FYI, we're gonna have some fun doing that. I might draw some cool pictures or something. So the next couple of slides you're looking at are actually renderings of this. So what we did is I have this cool guy who does these crazy rendering things and hocus pocus on his computer. And we took the drone out and got some shots of the neighborhood, and we're able to superimpose what these will look like kind of from a whole bunch of different vantage points. So I'll kind of flip through these a little bit quick, but you do have these pictures as well in front of you for those of you who are here in the building. But so this is a view looking across the meadow. This is a view looking from Grand Park Drive. So you're looking south. This is a view from Old Victory Road. Another view from Old Victory Road. another view. So kind of, basically we're going down Old Victory Road here. This is a Cousins Meadow neighborhood here, kind of looking back towards the apartments and the divide. And again, we continue on our way down, and there's a little key map on there kind of showing you where we are on this. But again, this is from the Willows apartments, or the Willows neighborhood. And then these are just some kind of elevations of the buildings themselves, or some renderings of them a little bit close up, so you can kind of get a feel for what they're going to look like. We're working on colors still, so don't get too hung up on the coloring of them. We're still working on some details of them, but I think this gives you a good feel for what these are gonna look like. This is the clubhouse. So what you're looking at here is the clubhouse that'll kind of back up to the meadow. And in that clubhouse, see, I get to do cool stuff. We are including about a 900 square foot pool, some banquet seating, a large group fire pit, some small fire pit spaces kind of intermixed in here, a large party spa. Everyone needs a party spa. A raised spa, a built-in barbecue, pool deck, yoga and game lawn. So you can kind of see this is obviously a quick rendering of the plan that we're looking at for the amenity for this neighborhood. In addition to that, some additional amenities aside from the clubhouse, we are going to have a ski storage building or locker and lounge. We have a pet spa. And then within the clubhouse, there's a game room and some fitness equipment and those types of things located within the clubhouse itself. So we really are excited about some of the cool amenities that we get to design and include in this particular neighborhood. And the nice thing about it too is if you look at the location of it, it's really a nice, lower building. It's not quite as tall. I think as you're looking at it from Highway 40 across the meadow, it actually provides kind of a nice terracing of the architecture. And I think it'll actually look really, really attractive. So now there's words. So that's all my pretty pictures. So what you're looking at here now is kind of a direct response to the comments that are actually in your resolution. And so, you know, you're welcome to, I probably won't read these specifically directly. You're welcome to read through all of these. And I know that Clark can speak in more detail on some of this too. But I think that Scott just gave a really good summary of the 23W or our position on 23W. It was also outlined in the letter that he provided that was in your packet on this. But, you know, one thing that I would like to mention that wasn't brought up as it relates to 23W being internal to the site, and I probably have another picture that might show this better. There we go. Is specifically, you know, I think 23W here in this location. Again, this goes back to, if you look back at the site plan that I showed and kind of spoke to the buffer and some of the landscape areas that we've provided in order to kind of provide a nice transition between the existing homes and the apartments. What this does for them is it makes this a permanent open space condition for them. And so if you think about those homeowners that are fronting on a Mountain Willow Drive, being able to put that 23W permanent open space condition adjacent to their homes, if I were them, I'd love that all day long. So that's something that I'd like to just kind of bring up that isn't necessarily a legal reason, but I think it's actually a nice just real transition for the homeowners there, and really kind of provides that nice buffer and transition from the existing home sites there. Next one is the annexation agreement and the goal of preserving Cousins Meadow. You know, I think Scott kind of addressed that pretty clearly in his comments. So I think that the rest of this, you kind of have, Scott did a good job of being able to explain our position around 23W and why we show it where we show it from a legal perspective. And from my perspective, from a planning perspective, I just kind of described that to you as well, providing that permanent open space condition. Comment 2, improper inclusion of 2W.3 and 0.4 into the development plan. This one came as a little bit of a surprise to me because, you know, some of you may know I've been working with the town of Fraser and Grand Park for way more years than I care to admit. And pretty much every final plan that we've done has had a allowance for future development areas within each FPDP on Grand Park and Rendezvous. So this was a new one for us. So I guess you know, I would just say that, you know, this is something that we've always done. And I think the reason we've done it is that it allows for the entire planning area to be encapsulated into one FPDP. So it kind of shows that total picture, even though it might have future development areas, it kind of allows that entire planning area to be kind of shown within a final plan itself. And that's what we've kind of always done. So I think that, you know, being able to include that in this FPDP is appropriate and consistent with kind of everything we've done historically over the years from 2005 for Cousins Meadow to the Elk Creek condos that were just recorded in 2019 or 2020, somewhere recent. So the next couple pages just kind of show you those examples of those particular FPDPs that have been recorded for this. So the last comment number 3 talks about the dedication of Old Victory Road. We will be dedicating Old Victory Road. We will do that with the completion of this development. And, you know, I think that, I know that the reason that we're, the reason that we are looking to delay that a little bit would be for construction staging. So the idea of the fact, if you go back to the plan, which I can maybe just go back to this guy for a second. Go back to the plan here. If you're looking at trying to build all of this, if Old Victory Road is built, there's nowhere to stage. And you don't want construction traffic going down Mountain Willow Drive, I mean, or up American Willow Drive, which makes sense. So the idea here would be, you know, we've got 2 points of access, and while we're under construction, we'd like to be able to actually do staging and construction traffic along that portion of Old Victory Road that's not built, right? And keep that construction traffic away from those homes. And then when we're done, we'll build Old Victory Road. So that's the plan. That's kind of what was demonstrated in the letter that Scott provided, dated October 15th. So, you know, there's no question that we're going to build Old Victory Road. We're not trying to skirt away from it. We're just trying to deal with some logistics and kind of hopefully keep the homeowners that are going to be impacted by this construction, because these are some big buildings and it's going to take a little while, and there's going to be lots of big stuff happening around them that we'd like to be able to keep as much of that away from them as we possibly can. And finally, I'm going to go back down here. Oh, sorry, went one too far. Finally, the last comment here is about the sewer crossing. We committed to the Fraser Sand District to construct that connection across. You know, the agreement is to install that line, so we're not, again, planning to shirk away from that by any stretch. You know, we understand the capacity, and we've agreed to install that across US 40. So again, and that was the same that was provided in the letter on October 15th that Scott provided, was that we're going to build that. So, you know, so it feels like 3 and 4 are kind of off the table. I feel like we've kind of addressed those, but happy to talk to you more about it. So that's my spiel for what it's worth. Clark, did you want to get up and talk, or you want to just go to comments?
No, I'll just touch on
A few things I missed.
Okay, thank you, Layla.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Clark Lipscomb for the record, representing Grand Park. And thanks Scott and Layla and the Planning Commission as well for taking the time to hear this and look over it. It's been a long process to get to here. I think 2 denials and third time's a charm. So here we are. So I first want to start off with highlighting there seems to be a lot of focus on portions of Cousins Meadow and how that's preserved. And what I want to do is reflect back on when we bought this in 1999. It was a 108-acre golf course, and every piece of property around that golf course was developed from Fraser to Winter Park. That's what I bought. In 2003, we changed that with a partner and created a Cousins Meadow open space area. Had 5 holes of golf still in the PDD in the Meadow, which the town was quite sensitive to golf at the time being in the Meadow and didn't want the golf course in the Meadow. And that was our plan. Then in 2005, the current plan, which is what we've developed off of since we started Grand Park. That plan is my plan. I'm the guy in charge that made that plan. I'm the one that worked with the town and took golf out of that meadow. I'm the one that helped write the documents, et cetera. And that plan is what we followed. And there seems to be a big misconception here that somehow we're dramatically changing that plan, when in fact that is grossly inaccurate. And I want to set the record straight that that's not accurate. And I think what the Planning Commission should understand is these bubbles are statistical. It literally specifically says they're not surveyed. They are there for statistical purposes to generally depict the entitlements, the units that are to be constructed generally in that area. And those areas are going to change. And it cites all the acreages that are approximate, et cetera. The one constant is entitlements. And so those entitlements that Scott highlighted for this particular project will get built. And it may take more land, it may take less land. And that's true for every planning area, and that's true for how our annexation agreement works. And I believe your lawyer, Kent Whitmer, agrees with that. And so this notion that we're somehow hung up on 33.8 acres, which is in the town staff report, is really not a correct, accurate statement in accordance with the guidelines. What we are committed to as a constant are the entitlements and building those entitlements on the land that's necessary. And so I think it's important that you realize that. Now, we're faced with a project where we built a very nice duplex and single family home community in the Willows. Very proud of it. I think the homeowners, some of which are here, some are online, very much like their neighborhood. And we've really tried to be very, very sensitive to melding the architecture of these apartments and keeping the building scale smaller, having more buildings, separating them, creating mass open space throughout the complex to complement the duplexes rather than loom over them. And when I say loom over them, Catherine cited the standards for this area, which are 0 lot lines, 75 feet tall. And if we did that and we got rid of the 23W here and packed the site, which is something that is contrary to the town code. So I'm going to bring in the town code as well and couple that with what we've done here. The town code encourages disbursement of open space through developments and discourages, specifically its words, packing of sites. Okay. Now we can go pack the site to 0 lot line, 75 feet tall, and you'll have buildings that in those renderings would be looming over everything. I don't think that's appropriate for the homeowners that are there. And I don't think it fulfills kind of the character of what we've established and what we're wanting to build today in today's market, which is a big consideration. And I've been working on this plan for 2 years, maybe 3. It's been a long time. And we've been trying to figure out how to bring long-term rental housing. And this is multifamily zoning, so this could just as easily be a condominium project as well. But we've really been working hard to try to address some of the housing challenges our community faces. We obviously are building the mill apartments, a low-income, deed-restricted affordable housing project that's under construction and coming out of the ground. That's great. That will help. But we need all types of housing in our community for our community to work, and all types of long-term rental housing. Everybody can't afford to buy a home. And different people have different needs for the rental of their homes. And so this fulfills that free market aspect of apartments that our market analysis say that there's a good amount of demand for this very nice free market project. This is designed like I would build condos. Okay, so I literally went to the nth degree on these buildings and said, guys, I do have a little apartment partner in this project, and we've got 10-foot ceilings. We have huge windows. We have lots of stone. These are just like our condo buildings. This is built with my intent of making this look high-end, feel high-end, and fit in with the character of the homes that we've already built there in the Willows neighborhood. So it's complementary to them, not degrading in any way. And I think the 23W bringing into the project, I think it's pretty contiguous. I think it shows on that map that it's pretty contiguous. It reflects identically what was done in the Meadow subdivision, the Elk Creek subdivision. And at the end of the day, what if there's more 23W acreage than less? Is that a problem? Because we've already met our open space requirements for 2W. Realize that. So in filings 1, 2, and 3, the open space requirements for all of 2W have been met. So I think this is an exceptional plan that's had a lot of thought put into it. I think it's going to fit in well with the community there, and people should be very proud of the product. With respect to some of the comments of the town, the sewer, Layla addressed. We committed years ago. First of all, the sewer district's the one that asked us to use the existing sewer line that was sitting idle and unused. So they didn't want another line to use. With the agreement that we would put in a new line when that one got to capacity. It's nearing capacity. We understand. We haven't seen the studies. We don't really care. We'll take your word for it that it's getting close. And we've got designers working on extending the 15-inch sewer line that we installed down Old Victory Road in accordance with our master sewer plan that's on file with the town, that will have a connection across Highway 40 near Bank of the West. We've committed to do that. It'll be in a separate development improvement agreement. That's a non-issue. It should come off the list. It's not related to this subdivision. It will be installed next summer, well before these buildings are ever even finished. Okay. With respect to Old Victory Road, I'd just like to point out that Old Victory Road is nearly all paved now. And many of you are on the town board, so you've heard me say this many, many times. The annexation agreement, if we want to go hardcore on it, says the town of Winter Park will participate. They actually did after a long fight, but they did, and they helped with the underpass. Grand County will participate. The Winter Park ski area will participate, and the town of Fraser will consider and look at alternative financing mechanisms because it's a road of regional nature. It's really not required for our developments. We could have designed our developments differently had that road not been a requirement. To date, our company, Cornerstone, Grand Park, is the only entity that spent any money building that other than the portion that actually technically hasn't come from Winter Park, but will be coming from Winter Park. It's in escrow. We have now paved Old Victory Road on the north end of the Willows, all the way to Highway 40 from Mountain Willow Drive. And we've paved it from American Willow Drive all the way to Kings Crossing Road. And we have preliminary acceptance packages into the town. We've been trying to get these roads accepted by the town. So the notion that we don't want to finish Old Victory Road and don't want it accepted is a complete fallacy and outright not accurate. What we want to do is use the gravel portion of Old Victory Road that still remains gravel as our construction staging area. And that area is actually, that road is designed to change. It actually gets lowered from its current gravel state. Some of that material will go on the site. But the idea to do that was in the interest of our homeowners in the Willows and being sensitive to what is for up here, a good sized construction project that'll take 18 months to 2 years to complete, and trying to minimize the impacts on the Willows homeowners that are already there and our duplex neighborhood and our single family neighborhood. Much like the Mill Apartments, where we used to have a connection to Leonard Lane, and we heard from the people on Mill Avenue that they didn't want the construction traffic. And what do? We worked with the town and we eliminated the connection to Leonard Lane, right? And we built an entirely new road across Byers Peak Ranch to serve the project. That was being sensitive to the impacts of construction. And this is no different. We're saying, you know what? You're going to have to do without Old Victory Road for a little bit longer. And by the way, the annexation agreement has no requirements as to timeframes for dedication of Old Victory Road. And this plat meets all of the access requirements without Old Victory Road, using Mountain Willow Drive and American Willow Drive and the existing portions of Old Victory Road already constructed. So give us a little credit here that that road will get built. We want to do a separate DIA. We've outlined this to your lawyers. that would be built upon the completion and certificate of occupancy issuance of the final apartments come online then, which is in the interest of that community as well, because they're no doubt going to want to not have a gravel road next to those apartments. Okay, so there is a method to the madness, and we know what we're doing, and we just need a little bit of recognition that those things are, in fact, we committed to them long ago. What's in the staff report really isn't reflective of our position, and I think it's repeatedly stated. I think, unless you guys have a lot of questions for me, this is a project that's needed for the community. It's a very expensive project, getting more expensive all the time. We hope that it will get approved and that we can go build this and realize too. And I think with the understanding today with Kent Whitmer, the town's lawyer, that the entitlements are in fact the constant and the controlling factor. If you guys want to change how we've been doing plans and final plans for 18 years and eliminate the future development areas, we don't care. We've made that clear to him and said, that's fine. We can take off the 2W.3 and 2W.4. Doesn't matter to us. Ultimately understand we are going to develop every single unit of entitlement in 2W plus the 30% transfer. We're going to do the same thing in 1WA and 1WB. And the reason being is we think that's the appropriate area for that kind of density. We're moving towards a town core, the village center, as we call it. And we think those are appropriate areas for these higher density neighborhoods. And that's our intent and our goal. And we will be developing all of those entitlements. The acreage that it's ultimately on will be determined by the product that's designed and developed for those areas. And that'll be in accordance with the annexation agreement. So this idea that acreages and all this stuff are a defining, constant and what's in the staff memo is simply not correct. So, understand we're sensitive to my plan and preserving the great amount of open space that we did do, but we are going to develop this plan. And I do want to see it developed faster than what we have developed the project. It's been 22 years, I think, that we've been working on this project. And we would like to see the village get finished, come to life. This is a critical component of this creates housing nearby. This creates lifeblood nearby with lots of units that should be occupied year round with lights on, hopefully going to our restaurants, bars and shops in the village, which are a short walk from here. The rec center is a short walk from here, the existing bowling alley theater. This is good for that part of the project. And it's good for the town. It's good for the commercial development and trying to encourage and push those things along. So, please reconsider your position on your resolution. Take into account what we've said here today. Realize this is a desperately needed project and that our layout and our architectural design is uber sensitive. And if my partner were sitting here right now today, that's in this project, the HUD partner, he would sit here and say, Clark has beat us to death about making this fit in with the product that Clark developed in the Willows already. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lipscomb. All right, now do commission members have questions for the applicant? Philip?
Nope.
Do you have any questions? Bob?
No, but I think this might be an appropriate time for me to
Perfect.
go on the record about something.
Mhm.
It has come to my attention just yesterday, in fact, that an individual has sent a letter to the town of Fraser questioning my ability to make a fair judgment on a vote tonight. Now, this individual represented themselves as someone in the Grand Park community. I don't know if that's true or not, but anyway, the accusation was made that I shouldn't be allowed to vote tonight. I have contended all along that I have no problem with voting on Clark's projects. We don't have a business relationship. We have a personal relationship. I know him as the developer who sold me my house. I've lived in the Cousins Meadow subdivision, or as he calls it, service area, for 10 years. So yes, I know Clark. I do have some exchanges with him in terms of, I put plans in front of his HOA review board to do some small construction projects at my property. And I have an arrangement that I lease a space in his construction yard to store a trailer, because I can't store the trailer on my property. And so I pay Clark for that. So everything that Clark and I have done has been an arm's length transaction. So I don't feel like I have a conflict, but with advice from Kent today, he suggested that I read the conflict of interest memo that was put out to all the commissioners recently and act accordingly if I thought I needed to do something. And so I have. I don't want the vote tonight to be colored by an accusation that I might be voting inappropriately because of my personal relationship with Clark. So what I've done is I've gone on the Secretary of State's website, and I have filed a conflict of interest details alleging that there may be a perceived conflict of interest on this project or any other projects down the road that Clark and Grand Park Development are going to be contemplating and bringing before the Planning Commission. And so I have 3 things I've sent over to the town today. One is my certificate from the Secretary of State saying that I have filed what might be perceived as a conflict of interest in voting on projects done by Grand Park. And I have answered those in my filing documents. I've also included an attachment that details in a little more specificity why I believe that I have no financial arrangements or interests in any of Clark's projects. So I've done that, and I fully intend to vote on future issues that come before this Planning Commission that have to do with any of the projects that Clark and Grand Park Development are planning. But as for tonight, I will have to recuse myself because in part of the filings, it says that had I known this memo had come to the town earlier, I would have filed this earlier, but I have a 72-hour window that I'm not supposed to vote on anything within 72 hours. I'm supposed to have this in the hands of the Secretary of State 72 hours before I'm to take any action on any matters. So with that said, in the future, I'll be back and I will vote, but tonight I will recuse myself from a vote.
Okay. Thank you, Bob. Interesting. Arnell, do you have any questions for the applicant?
Sam or Margaret?
Sam Brewer, do you have questions for the applicant?
No questions.
Margaret?
Actually, I'm sorry, I have laryngitis. I'm trying as hard as I can to talk. I do have a question. Clark mentioned that he had a couple of other sites, a couple other pods, 1B. He mentioned a couple. So the concern I would have is in those pods, if they get developed, is there a possibility that are they in a location where more of the, what I'm calling the meadow, would be incorporated into those sites as well? Is that what we're saying? In other words, you understand my question?
Yep.
So they've incorporated parts of 23W into this development. And if you develop out whatever the other 2 he mentioned, I think they were both like 1B or something, and said that those were going to be developed with higher densities. Is it possible then that even more of the meadow would be taken for those? That's my question.
Yes, ma'am, Margaret. The point of making reference to 1WA, 1WB in relation to 2W, those are already higher density areas. And our intent is to fully develop those to the extent of the entitlements there. Yes. Could they expand under the annexation agreement? Sure, they could. It could take years to determine the actual product that will work and the designs to fulfill those entitlements. But our intent is to fully develop those. That said, as I pointed out, it was my plan that you're looking at. And I think something that I didn't touch on and I should have, that many probably don't realize. 2W's bubble configuration, those are, I did touch on the fact that they're statistical bubbles and they're very just random, round, simple things. The reality of it is when you go and do the studies on the ground, which we did after the O5 PDD, you learn things like, hey, there's natural wetlands here and we have to avoid those with development. And so the developments that we have done so far have worked around all those things. That's what gives it some of the odd shapes. And if you actually did the math today, we're pretty much exactly on a per acre basis where we intended to be. I think we'll probably end up somewhere close to that, but the fact remains that to the extent we need more land area than is specified in the PDD as acreage to develop a certain product or entitlement in an area, yes, it could, those development areas could increase. Right now, today, we finished 3WC, 3WA, 3WB, 5W, 4W is nearing completion. There's a sketch plan into the town. And really the only remaining parcels are 1WA, part of 2W, which we've pretty much established a pretty solid line on the north end of 2W. And 1WB is kind of up by solar townhomes. It's kind of irrelevant for the point of your question. But the answer is yes, the pursuit of the agreement, depending on what product is determined to be best to fulfill those entitlements, acreages can change.
Anything else, Margaret?
No, thanks.
Okay. All righty. Well, thank you.
That was
You may
easy. No
take a
other
break.
questions? Or are you gonna have a public part of this or?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
once you're done, no one's gonna ask you questions at this time. I know, well, the board got a chance. So let's see, now my intention is to open it up to public comment. So we received 8 letters from concerned or property owners with comments, and one was in our packet. That was from Deb Schulman, because it was published in our packet. I'm not going to read that one just because it's available for everyone to have read, assuming that all our board members have. So bear with me. I will read these so that they can be part of our public comment, and then I'll open it up to other public members. This email is from Jeffrey Cabot, October 22nd. Fraser Planning Commission. I understand there's a meeting next Wednesday, October 27th at 6:30 at the town hall regarding the new apartments in Grand Park. I have some concerns and questions I want to share with you. I'm still very concerned the developer will encroach into the Cozen Meadow, ? Developer has shown he does not care and does not want to. He does what he wants. So encourage the city to hold him to what was agreed to. This was a large part of why I bought there and was told at closing this was going to be the plan going forward. Are the apartments going to be affordable housing? ? If so, how long before he will sell as condos? Alternatively, will there be a set aside of a certain number of apartments to be affordable units? Will there be a requirement for a certain number of apartments to be rented to full-time residents? Will the property be deed restricted so that it remains a rental property for 30 years? Or is the owner permitted to sell individual units as condominiums at any time of choosing? What is the purpose of the road dead ending into the meadow? still have many issues with grading, final landscaping, and Grand Park, so I encourage you to tighten up issuing certificates of occupancy since developer does not go back and do what was agreed at closing. We have open ponds, open drainage dishes, unfinished grading and landscaping, and since developer runs HOAs, nothing happens. We have no avenue to get anything completed. It's very frustrating for many of us. Appreciate your consideration and responses. Thank you, Jeff Cabot. Mountain Willow Drive. This next email is from Jake Schlesinger, received on Saturday, the 23rd. Members of the Planning Commission, I'm writing to express my concern over the proposed Willow apartment project. While I strongly support the need for affordable, long-term rental housing in the valley, it should not be at the expense of our open space. I've admired the town's recent leadership to preserve Cousins Meadow, and I hope this vote will be consistent with that important objective. I do think apartments are desperately needed in the valley, and there is a lot of room in Grand Park where they could be built. I'd suggest Fraser follow the lead of many other Colorado jurisdictions and require that a significant number of deed-restricted long-term affordable rentals available to the local workforce be required as a condition of any future development plan approvals. It is important that the proper covenants be executed to ensure any such units remain available for long-term local affordable housing into perpetuity. The town has a lot of leverage in this regard, and without taking such bold action soon, we will not have enough workers to support our local economy. Let's encourage all developers to set aside some of their development for this important purpose, but not at the expense of Cousins Meadow or any other open space previously agreed to be preserved. Best, Jake Schlesinger. Great, Alderbrook Drive. This one is from Andrea Schumacher, Monday, October 25th. Please address the following concerns at the upcoming meeting on Wednesday. It was addressed to, labeled to Antoinette. Questions that have been gathered include, and when I bring you back up, clerk, applicant, if there's a few of you would like to briefly address, that would be great. Okay. And I can let you have a peek at, you can have this copy when I'm done reading it. These just came out late. So this was Monday, October 25th. The packet was out. Yeah. Otherwise, I wouldn't be reading them. But it's public comment period. So I want everybody to get a chance to hear them. And if somebody has to just stand up and stretch, you're more than welcome to do that. Okay. Questions that have been gathered include, we understand the developers paying reduced tap fees. So is the town receiving a restrictive covenant to require the units to remain apartments into perpetuity? Question. Possible that we missed this in the prior submission? Question mark. Does the project still encroach into Cousins Meadow? What is the purpose of the road dead ending into the meadow? Is this going to be affordable housing? Alternatively, will there be a set aside of a certain number of apartments to be affordable units? Will there be a requirement for a certain number of apartments to be rented to full-time residents? Will the property be deed restricted so that it remains a rental property for 30 years? Or is the owner permitted to sell individual units as condominiums at any time of its choosing? Who will manage 204 apartments? The parking, the trash, the noise complaints. Currently, even with the few homes that are full-time residents, the trash seems to get out of control and not properly disposed. People have blamed the rented units, but it could also be homeowners who don't follow the rules. I can't imagine what happens when you get 204 renters versus the few we have now. Next, has there review of the traffic impact. What is the plan for the retail unfinished buildings and property? What has changed since the May meeting where the proposal was denied? And are all the concerns addressed and changed in the current proposal? What about the sewer concerns? Will there be a new sewer main? What happened to the open space, conservation, the great outdoors? The current owners have punch lists that were never fully addressed. Let's multiply by that by 400%, although if the new units are renters, who are they to complain? The town confirmed that emails sent to town clerk Antoinette McVeigh will be gathered and provided to the planning commission at the meeting. Thank you. Kind regards, Andrea Schumacher, homeowner. Okay, we're getting closer and the others are all shorter.
Excuse me, could you move the microphone a little closer? It's hard to hear.
Sure. Yeah. I have hearing aids, so I feel like I'm talking really loud. This is from Carrie Flynn, Town of Fraser. I'm an owner in Cousins Meadow at Grand Park and love my community here. We have a wonderful mix of full-time and part-time owners. I'm not aware of any rentals either, short or long-term, that feel that there have been. I'm not aware of any rentals, either short or long-term, that feel that there have been minimal issues from either of these non-homeowners. A true workforce housing project is in dire need and is essential for our community. This can be a great asset in perpetuity. I'm a huge advocate on a personal and professional level. My family and I have lived in Hideaway Junction neighborhood in Winter Park for 8 years prior to purchasing in Grand Park. That deed restrictive structure was essential to us, making it possible to purchase a property outright without any deed restriction. I would honestly say that we would not be where we are today if it wasn't for that program. To my dismay, that program has evolved to reach beyond the initial eligibility requirements for ownership. I would like to see a different change with that program, but since I do not live in Winter Park, I no longer have a dog in the fight. For this reason, it's important for the Fraser community to provide details on the structure of how this type of housing benefits the local workforce and our area and who it benefits. With that, we should have defined details on the specific requirements for eligibility. For example, the length of residing within the community, location of employment or employer's base community, subleasing, equity caps, how long the units will remain as rentals, and structure of rental agreement, including increases in terms, occupancy restrictions, purchase versus rental, leaseholder, and other essential details to ensure this project will benefit the local community and the local workforce. I would ask that prior to final approval on any project, including this one, the town of Fraser have a drafted structure that is fully understood as workforce housing. I'm happy to hear that this developer is pursuing this need and want to make sure that something this essential provides the best for all involved. Thank you for your time and being an important part of our community. Carrie Flynn. Andy Richards. I am writing and request this to be entered into the record ahead of the meeting tomorrow night. Parnell Quinn is not in any capacity impartial to have an involvement in any town matter involving Clark, Lipscomb, and Grand Park. For that matter, please review your team and require this of any and all who have professional gain from their vote of favor for Clark and Grand Park. We bought into Grand Park 5 years ago, and it has been a complete bait and switch. We still have an unfinished project. I beg the town to stop granting GP and Clark building permits until he completes what he started. We were completely lied to by GP about the open space around us. We were told there would never be a structure added to the meadow, that the space was only zoned as potential for golf course, but that would not ever happen. This is what we were told. Too bad we didn't know that the developer is a liar. Please do better, demand better. This has been outrageous to watch unfold, and we must do better as a community. If you are finding personal and professional gain from Clark, remove yourself. Looking at you, Parnell, we all know you are in deep with him, and it is not a good look.
Katie, I would like a copy of that letter so I can give it to my attorney, please.
Okay. The last one is from Brett Johnson. Please include the below comment in public comments for tonight's Planning Commission meeting. I'm a homeowner at 256 Mountain Willow Drive, directly across from and adjacent to the proposed Willows Apartments. I do not support this planned development. The proposed development is contrary to what we were told the land would be used for by the Grand Park when we purchased and built our home. We were told the land would be used for low-density, single-family housing. Further, while we know affordable housing is needed in Fraser and Winter Park, this is quite obviously a very inappropriate location for such a development. By way of comparison, we as homeowners were sent an email by Grand Park on August 6th in reference to the proposed Excel compressor station. The developer stated the proposed location is an eyesore, noise nuisance, and will impact everyone's property values. And the letter continued to state there are better locations, options, or alternatives. This statement can directly apply to this proposed multifamily development. There are better and more appropriate locations. Okay, that's it for the letters.
Katie, could I just add one thing?
You may, Bob.
Let the record state that the email that I was shown that personally named me as being not impartial in the vote coming up tonight
Yeah.
wasn't read tonight. I'm
Okay.
not sure where it exists, but I got a copy of it. Catherine told me about it yesterday.
Yeah.
I got a copy of it this morning and I took action. So just like
Yeah.
Parnell, I want to,
Was that not
make
in-
sure that
Yeah.
it's in the record that that was said and I've taken action to defend myself.
We can't take any public comment. I'm sorry. Yeah, can't take any public comment.
Did you not have that other letter to read?
Which one?
The one that he's referencing?
No, this is all that I have. And these
you
were
not-
all, again, these were to the Fraser Planning Commission. Maybe that was it. But no, you might have, did you get that individually?
No.
No,
okay.
it came to Antoinette and
It
it's.
So anyway-
came to Antoinette and Antoinette, shared
Okay.
it with Catherine.
Yeah,
Catherine
and
called and told
Needless
me
to
about it.
say, I wasn't that comfortable
Well,
reading the letter. but-
Maybe we could have
Okay.
the other public comment and have Antoinette.
Yeah, can
find
you get that letter?
and print
Great.
it out, and then we can
Perfect.
read it.
Great. And
That's why I'm quick boxes.
Yeah, there you go.
I know in the past, conflict of interest has come up in the past with Parnell, but that has not been proven that you have any financial.
I got it, Antoinette.
So that's not for me to go into, but
Let's read that one. That's.
Okay.
the last one.
here we go.
Sorry.
The last one. Or was this the very first one?
That's.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. This is from Joseph Landon. And was sent to Antoinette, our town staff. Hi all, as notice and materials for the above referenced application scheduled for hearing at the October 27th Planning Commission meeting have been mailed, can you please post all of the same materials to the town website? Also, given the conflict language specified in section 15.3 of the Grand Park Charter, see attached, I would like to know the town's position regarding Commissioner Ganussi's ability to vote at this hearing. I understand from him directly that he leases storage space from the developer. I'm also concerned that certain residents from time to time have been required to pay a $500 architectural review board fee to the developer for property modification requests. Given the significant number of modifications Commissioner Ganusi has made to his property, I also inquired directly with him 3 times whether or not he has ever had to pay the $500 architectural review board fee. He has never responded to those inquiries. The public deserves to be made aware of all these relationships, perceived or actual, that he may maintain with the applicant. The Honorable Judge Hoke went out of her way multiple times during the TRO hearing to put the word on notice of any possible perceived conflict that she might have. The planning commissioners and city council members should follow that example and do the same. Thank you, Joe Landon, Meadow Trail. Okay.
Thank you, Katie.
You're welcome. Thank you. All right, now we will open it up. I think we'll start in this room because I can see faces. Is there anyone here who would like to make a public comment? If so, come to the podium and introduce yourself and try to keep it to 3 minutes. Timer out.
My name is Craig Healy. I just have 2 quick comments. Could I approach?
No, well, you can approach us.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, sorry. This is strictly to the commission.
Just 3 copies of those. But that's 2 aerial photos that I developed. One 2005 and one 2019. And the developer made a comment a few minutes ago and mentioned area 23W, when's all said and done, could be smaller or it could be larger. But I think you'll see the encroachment on 23W over time, it's become smaller. So maybe in a great world, we'll see it get larger. But the trend is for that 23W to be shrinking. The other comment I wanted to make was I'm a geologist, not an attorney. But it seems that this 23W and the conservation easement, the open space is subject to current litigation. So I guess I would ask the town attorney to make a reading on, can this be decided or voted on tonight when it is the subject of current litigation?
Okay.
And if we can get an opinion on that.
That's your question?
Can the commission
Okay.
even vote tonight
So,
when we have something that's under pending litigation?
okay, so this is public comment, so we may or may not give you an answer tonight, okay?
Okay.
But do you have a brief answer for that?
I do.
Okay, then we'll let him answer.
Thank you.
He's at the
I
table. with
think
the
if
board.
the commissioners determined that that what was being proposed tonight by the applicant was within the bounds of what was originally contemplated in the 2003 annexation agreement and the 2005 PDD, then yeah, it could approve it,
We could approve.
the application. If you thought that it was outside, my recommendation would be to not approve it because that's not the town's position in the litigation.
All right, thank you. Okay, is there anyone else here in the room that would like to comment? All righty. So Antoinette, I'm gonna have you help me, you girls, because it's hard for me to read. And if you are zooming in and you would like to comment, please raise your hand. If you know how to do that. And there's a lot of folks out there, so don't really want to question each person if possible.
Andrea Schumann, you should be able to speak.
Okay.
Hi, I was just calculating based on the site plan, the number of parking spots that, and I know the town has approved these at, I think it's 1 parking spot for 1 bedroom is 1.5 parking spots for a 2 bedroom and 2 parking spots for a 3 bedroom. So I'm a current homeowner in the Willows, and one weekend, one of the units was rented, and I don't know if it's a 3 bedroom or a 4 bedroom, but in one of the cul-de-sacs, there were 10 cars that were parked at one side of the townhouses, not at the double townhouse, but on just one of the townhouses, they were wrapped into the cul-de-sac, and there were 10 cars at one unit. And no one's policing that or doing anything about that. So my concern is that for a 1 bedroom, if I were a young single person, a worker in Winter Park, for my 1 bedroom, I'd have me and my significant other. So then that's 2 cars for a 1 bedroom. For a 2 bedroom, if it was my friend and I who were renting, it would be my friend, me, and our 2 significant others. So that would be 4 cars for a 2 bedroom, and so on. For a 3 bedroom, there'd be 6 cars for a 3 bedroom potential, max. So calculating that for the 1 bedrooms, I get 142 cars. 2 bedrooms, I get 408 cars. And for the 3 bedrooms, I get 183 cars. So there's a potential of having 733 cars in this in these units. And I think I'm calculating it correctly that there are 395 spaces. So I know we're not allowed to park on the street. I know we're not allowed to have more cars, but there's no way to police that. And it's just going to be for apartments, for people who are renting and they don't really care about their pride of ownership because they're not owning, that they're not going to really follow the rules, and there's just going to be way too many cars.
All right. Well, thank you, Andrea. We appreciate your feedback.
Thanks.
Is there anyone else that would like to pose a question or comment tonight?
We don't see anybody else's hands that are raised. We do not see any other hands raised to make comment.
Okay.
Oh, there's one.
Top
Peggy
left, there we go.
Smith?
Is that Sam? No.
That's Peggy.
Raise that hand again. It was on our screen and now it's not. Ah, okay. Peggy Smith.
To unmute.
Oh, there we
Okay, she's almost unmuted. There you go. Good.
Thank you for listening to all the presentations tonight. As you know, I am an advocate of maintaining the open space and the conservation easement requirements in the Meadow, both Cousins and Elk Creek. I believe this is the crown jewel of the Fraser Valley. I think that when this was negotiated in 2003, and there were public statements made at the public meetings that 80% of the Meadow would remain open, and there would be a conservation easement on both Cousins Meadow and Elk Creek Meadow. I think it is imperative that we preserve this open space. I do not believe that, and if you look at Cray Healy's exhibits, Clark has encroached tremendously into the open space. We need to preserve this open space because this is our heritage. This is why people come to the Fraser Valley. And it is imperative that you, as the Planning Commission support that and that the board continues that. So I encourage you to deny Clark's application tonight and move it to the board so that they can actually finally decide what is going to happen to this community in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you, Peggy. Okay. Give it 30 more seconds for another hand to show, and no one else here. Comments? Okay, I am closing the public comment period. We will not accept any more public comments at this time during this meeting at all. Now, let me find my notes. Keep me on task. I think that this is your time to come up, Mr. Lipscomb, and address some of the comments. And let's see what time. We got 8:10. And I know that you can be
I'll go
succinct.
fast. So
Just be succinct.
I'll do the best I can.
Thank you.
I can't say I took notes on every single one of these. I think first to start off, this is a free market apartment complex. This isn't deed restricted. We are building a deed restricted apartment project at Mill Avenue, the Mill Apartments. It's in the county next to Mill Avenue in Fraser. It's 60 units, deed restricted for 40 years, 80% of median income. We'd love to see other developers and municipalities and governmental entities building housing in this community. We'd love to see some input from some of the people on this list to actually contribute to actually making it happen and get some housing built. These are free market units. It's very nice free market units. I explained they're built like condos. They're designed like condos. They can be condos. The zoning is the same. Multifamily zoning in Fraser allows for both. So regarding the tap fee structure, yes, apartments have a reduced tap fee structure to encourage the development of housing. Without that, apartment projects wouldn't happen. They're still very challenging financially in this community, probably why nobody else is doing them. If an apartment complex were changed to a condominium, it requires a condominium plat, which has to go through the town, and the town would collect the tap fee differential at that time. Same thing with the fire district, although the fire district, I can't remember how they charge for it, but I think there would be a fire district change as well. That would be a public hearing and a public process. There was a question about the road dead ending in the Meadow. That's at the Clubhouse. There's a road that's always been intended to tie with the entry cross highway to Rendezvous. There's a signal there today. That goes back on all of our plans. Most recently, the 2013 traffic study that we provided that covers the entire project and is approved by the town includes this general same road. It is a required component towards the end of build out of the entire Grand Park project. I want to say around 80% or something. We are trying to plan to make sure the provisions for that road remain intact. The designs are there for that road and that it can be added at the time that it becomes necessary. We think it's important and we think it's always been part of the plan. So let's make sure we plan for it and not exclude the opportunity. Traffic impacts been studied, trash, lots of dumpsters on this site. I think the HOA does police the trash. Yes, my team cleans it out. The Allegiant management team cleans them out. There's getting to be more and more people. I do like our enclosures that we've kept throughout our project. Catherine's laughing because she knows that they're near and dear to me, having quality enclosures as opposed to a giant central, go drop your trash in a bunch of dumpsters that are sitting in the back of an office building somewhere. We think these dumpster enclosures are very nice. Are there times when there's a lot of trash? Yes. Do they get called for extra pickups? Yes. They are managed. It's part of living in a community like this. And we kind of deal with it. Regarding the commercial buildings, we just got our permits back and we just got, we didn't have for 9 months and we just got materials here. Hopefully those will start moving forward in the near future. We can only hope, just in time for winter. Unfinished ponds, those unfinished ponds are on our private property. They're not part of the lot. They're not part of the development, in fact, that was approved. There was a requirement to move the ditch from flowing through those ponds, which was the original design. And we're trying to determine, do those ponds go away and do we fill them in? Or do we somehow use them in some other fashion? They are decreed. So, probably will get used in some fashion as ponds. Commenting on the compressor station, that was an odd one. I thought that was comparing these to allow compressor station. I don't know. They'd have to have some heck of some parties 24 hours a day to compete noise wise, but I don't know what to say about that. A whole lot of this sounds like not my backyard. Everybody wants housing, but nobody wants it near their place. Real interesting, having been here since 99 and listened to the housing talks and we need housing. But when you come out with projects, all of the people next to it oppose it. And that's what we've got here. There's not a solution if we don't start moving forward on this stuff. And ultimately the community won't be able to service its businesses, won't be able to have the workers for its businesses, and all of these people who are here to enjoy our quality lifestyle, and the businesses that are here won't have anybody to serve them food at the restaurant. So I think we're kind of a bigger picture business in terms of our approach to attacking this. We are the only private company that I'm aware of that's doing anything on scale to address housing or try to address housing. And it just is continually, it's a battle, and it's kind of like, why? Maybe we should throw our hands up and just go do this as condominiums. And I can tell you the economics are probably more appealing. Well, in fact, I know they're more appealing. It doesn't help with the workforce, but in any case, I think some of these people should potentially, if they're that passionate about housing, they should get after developing and trying to contribute to the means of solving some of these issues. And I didn't see Mr. Healy's photos. We are developing. In 2005, there was nothing developed. And all of the planning areas that we've developed this far, correct me if I'm wrong, Catherine, have been equal to or less than actually the acreage that we plan. And in fact, I think almost every one of them has more open space than's required in the PDD and the annexation agreement. So, I don't know what he showed you. I haven't seen it, but I would like to point that out. If you go look at what's been platted, the open space associated with each one of those plats, it's pretty much in compliance with that or less than it. And the open space, I know, is larger than what's required on an overall. So, I think, is it easy to say, God, we don't like development? Yeah, but you can remember in 99, we didn't have to change this plan in 03. We could have put a golf course out there and developed mass development from Winter Park to Fraser, but we didn't do that. And again, this is our plan. We recognize the importance of open space, of trails. Those ponds are out there because of me. The landscape berms are out there because of me. It's baffling, listening to this stuff, that it's like, oh, these guys just want everything to go away. That's just not true. So I would just take it with a grain of salt. I think the values have proven to have done very well in Grand Park. I'm not sure what some of these people think wasn't graded in their yards. We basically built in a riverbed. It's cobble rock everywhere you dig. And the yards look pretty nicely smooth, graded and topsoiled and seeded. Whether they water it or take care of it, that's a whole nother issue. The HOA, I think, is very well managed, very efficient. And I think that, this project will be it'll be under these covenants. There's design guidelines. As far as management, there was a question about management. There will be a property manager for this project. The LIHTC project has a company, and that's all they manage is LIHTC apartments. So there will be an apartment manager. There'll be on-sites. And those things like parking and trash and stuff on decks that shouldn't be on decks will all be managed by that on-site manager. So, I think this will not be very different than, large scale apartment complexes in the city, or if it were frankly a large scale condominium project. It's the same parameters, same parking parameters, right, Catherine? We don't have to have all the trash dumpsters we have on this project. We tried to put them in convenient locations for people to get to all these dispersed, spread out buildings. This is a very low density per acre spread out apartment complex as far as apartments go. Very, very low density units per acre. And I've already touched on all the reasons that we did that. So, I'm sorry that these, 8, 9, 10 people don't like the project. Maybe, I'd be happy to listen to other ideas they have for that area, but it is going to get developed and they need to understand that. And I think this is a really appropriate place for what we're trying to accomplish. So thank you.
Clark, before you sit down, are there any restrictions on the housing because you're potentially using HUD?
No,
development?
not, well, depends on the HUD program. This program is a 221D4 loan program. It's a 40-year construction to perm loan financing. The construction project right now is a $57 million construction project. That's fixed interest for 40 years. If you go and you basically can't take the units out of that program without taking out the financing. You could replace the financing. Okay. But when you do this financing, it's for the entire project. So it's a 40-year financing and encumbers all of the units, all of the buildings, the entire property. So if you wanted to say, go and convert it to condominiums, you would have to take out the HUD financing with cash or other financing, and then you could convert it and go sell it as condominiums. They are designed and will be built like condominiums. And specifically regarding sound between units, there's all kinds of perimeters, but they literally are built identical to condominiums. So it's not like kind of old fashioned apartments where they just threw them up and there wasn't sound mitigation between units, et cetera. So to give you an idea, yeah, they could be converted, be really expensive and very complicated.
And what about the residents living there? Is there any, can somebody from Denver rent it as a part-time unit and come up and use it on the weekends? Or is there any kind of requirement there that they have to be year-round locals, or can they sublease it to somebody else?
We would not allow subleasing. We don't allow that now. And I don't know any apartment people that do. These can be rented by anybody. They can be free market rent. It's a free market apartment complex. We would, from a financial model perspective, be trying to do nothing but 12-month leases. Because of the seasonality associated with our market. We know there's a bigger demand in the winter than there is during the summer. You don't want to end up with a half-empty apartment complex trying to service this amount of debt in the middle of summer. So therefore, you want 12-month leases. But anybody could rent them. I mean, you could technically, somebody from Nebraska, I guess, could rent them. They're a free market, but they will be 12-month leases.
So could they be used for nightly rentals? Somebody rented it? Okay.
Absolutely not. That will not be allowed in the leases.
Okay.
In condominiums, Katie, could be used as vacation rentals. And you could very easily take this very same project and say, you know what, the apartments don't work. For sale condominiums right now today in this market work great. Go do the whole project as a condominium project. You're gonna have 204 short-term vacation rentals. And the turn in and out of there could be pretty dramatic. So, I mean, I doubt 100% of them would be vacation rentals, but theoretically that's doable. But as far as the apartment model, it would not allow for short-term rentals or subletting.
And then
I'm sorry.
Public comments.
He's asking if you can do a public question.
We close public comment.
We did close public
You can-
comment. So can you say that? I know, where you want the comment?
Next meeting? Is there a
Well-
public section of bringing into this? Because there's more information
Well, there
being
was that I
produced.
just had open to everyone.
There's more information being produced.
There is more information. Can you address the board with your question? And can you come up to the podium, please? And address the board with your questions.
Are you opening public comment? Play it by books.
Oh,
because there isn't a-
God,
there's a
come
lawsuit
on, I'm
going
just the
about this
interim.
case. And we have
um,
our attorney here, so maybe he should.
Yeah, it's a brief one,
Okay,
if that helps.
if it,
I think you have discretion.
I have discretion. Come with address the board, please.
Yes, ma'am. Board, my name's Patrick Sheets. I'm a homeowner at the Willows as well. My question is to the developer or to the board to consider if there's a commitment by the developer to maintain this as an apartment complex for a certain period of time versus, as the developer mentioned, they're being developed just like condominiums. So the comment is there a commitment to keep these as apartments to avoid short-term rentals being an issue for existing homeowners in the area?
Thank you. It's a good question. Mr. Lipscomb, can you
you.
address that question? that the
Yes, I
board just
can.
received?
Yeah, we're processing this as an apartment project. It's doing the HUD program has been a 2-year endeavor.
Okay.
It's a very costly program. Costs more than if we were to conventionally finance this. The benefit is you get 40-year fixed rate interest money, which would be hard to walk away from at today's interest rates. It's financially driven, Patrick. So
Okay, you need to address the board.
ultimately, it is financially driven.
Okay.
The apartment models work financially. The condominiums work better. But our goal has been, since we set out to do this project, to put apartments in this location. And given the extensive money invested in it, the HUD program that we're going through, we have until December 2nd, I think, was the extension that we received from HUD to make the firm application. We've been in a 3-step process. We've been invited to where they basically analyze this stuff at a very preliminary early stage, kind of middle, a little bit more advanced. Lots of studies have been done. Yes, there's a market for it. It makes sense. And then the final stage, which is full, complete design development, updates of all the studies and reports, and obviously true budgets, real budgets of the construction cost of real architecture. That's where we're at. That work's finished. It's ready to go to HUD. It has to be into them by December 2nd. Otherwise, we lose the HUD financing. If we lose the HUD financing, all options are on the table. Because, I mean, at that point, any one of you would go, okay, what am I going to do with this project? I just lost the financing I was counting on to go build what is in this market a very large project. So that's kind of what we're up against. And there's some timing involved here. And we've worked with Mr. Cannon and Ms. Trotter and trying to work out schedules to still be able to obtain these approvals to make our deadlines with HUD. And you know, if you guys don't approve it here tonight, then hopefully the town board will and understand the urgency associated with getting this done.
Is there a way that when the time comes to demonstrate to the board somehow factually through HUD that if you don't meet that December 2nd deadline, that you really will not be eligible for those same benefits? Just tuck that away. I think that that's something that I would like to see later.
Yeah, we've provided our HUD extension letters to the town. Your town manager has a copy. I think Catherine has a copy. You don't have a copy. Mr. Cannon has a copy. And it's been made very clear. Last and final extent. This has been extended before because of the COVID and all this other stuff. So this is it. They move on to other projects. They have other things to do.
Okay, well, thank
Okay.
you.
All right.
All right, so now commission members, do you have any more comments? Let's have some more discussion with our.
Yeah, it's Margaret. I would like to, excuse me, again, I'm trying really hard. I'm having really mixed emotions with this because it seems to me this is all boiling down to whether or not there is a legal right to use the open space from ICE 23W within the development of 2W. And it seems like it's boiling down to that issue. And so I'm uncomfortable. I don't know quite which way to go here because, the town has taken one position and the developer's taken a different position. And as a planning commission member, I don't feel that comfortable voting approval on it when, if in fact, the issue comes down on the town side, then that 23W cannot be used as open space. So my inclination is I would like to see it go to the Board of Trustees to make that decision. And so that is my conflict. I think that I agree that by incorporating the open space into the plan as he's got it, it's actually more favorable for those residents that live close by versus, like stacking, going up the full height. So I think from a planning perspective, it is better. But I also, in agreement, less that we take of the meadow, the better. And I'm just wondering, you set the precedent here, and then for the rest of the pods, let's take some more to create, more open space for those. And pretty soon you've chipped away at this meadow. So I'm very conflicted. And so that's my discussion. But I feel like I would like to punt this on to the Board of Trustees myself. And for that reason, I'm inclined to, to reject it so that it can go and we can kick it up to them to make the final decision.
Thank you, Margaret. Sam, would you like to make some comments?
Yeah, yes, I think along the lines of what Margaret just said, I would like to ask town council and the planner, has anything said here tonight by the applicant changed the town's position on any of these four issues that seem to be the stumbling blocks here?
Want me to go first, Catherine? Sam, this is Kent Whitmer. So one point of clarification that I would like to make along those lines, there was some talk by the applicant and the applicant's counsel today about how the justification for including 23W into this planning area falls under section 4.3 of the annexation agreement that was done back in 2003. And let me just read that to you real quick. It says the 2003 PDD has not been configured based upon surveyed acreages for the various planning areas. In the event the boundaries of a planning area are adjusted at time of subdivision or FPDP, then the approved number of residential units or approved commercial square footage provided for in the 2003 PDD shall be the controlling factor, and the designated acreage or density will be adjusted from that constant. So what the applicant and his attorney were saying is correct. These planning areas are malleable. They can contract and they can expand depending on what is ultimately approved by the town for development within those planning areas. What I did not hear though, and what I want to clarify as far as my position to counsel for the applicant and the applicant is that I don't see any connection between that provision and the ability to cut up 23W and include it in development plans. So that's where I have not been satisfied on that point yet. So on that point, no, I have not been satisfied. I was happy to hear that they are dedicating Old Victory Road. That's great. I don't know if the conditions that they've placed on the dedication are going to be satisfactory for the town, but that's probably a lesser discussion than the 23W inclusion discussion. I was glad to hear that they are going to commit to put in the sewer across the Highway 40 crossing. That satisfied that for me. I can't speak for Catherine and the rest of the town, but that sounded good from my perspective. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes, I think so. Thank you.
Ken, it was mentioned that, I think it was from Clark's counsel, that if there was a change in rules or regulations or something that over time they could move the bubbles how they needed to move them. Is the bubbles and the open space affected by the town's zoning and development rules and regulations?
So the 2003 annexation agreement expressly says that the bubbles, the planning area, development planning areas, they're going to be guides. So they wanted to establish an area that with these planning development areas would be confined to for the most part. But like I said, they're malleable, so they're flexible. But there was an intent there by the location of those things on the PDD maps that, hey, this is where we generally want them, is my interpretation of the annexation agreement and the PDD. So you've got guides in the form of planning bubbles. They can be adjusted, they can be defined differently as projects come forward. But I think with any guide, you have to keep in mind that there are guiding principles with those guides. And so to get those guiding principles, how you should ultimately decide on those planning areas, you have to look to the whole agreement, the whole PDD, and take everything together and decipher the intent. And that's what I was presenting earlier tonight, was the intent.
Because if the town changed its open space requirements, if they want open space in between buildings and between roads and buildings, would that affect this, the way that they use the malleable bubbles? Or is that something that wouldn't affect the 2003 annexation or 2003 PDD or 2005?
So the open
PDD?
space requirements would be something that needs to come out of the planning area. So it needs to come out of 2W, the 10% open space requirement.
Right, but if they're allowed to exchange spaces from, what was it? 2W something to 5W to 2W, are they able to transfer that open space requirement? Are they able to?
They're able to
Right.
do a density transfer.
Right,
But not the open space.
Just checking on that.
Okay, is that it for you? Is there any other questions or comments you'd like to make this time before we?
I guess
I will have everybody. Since
I-
he started, go ahead.
Well, I felt like I wanted to try to address Sam's comment, if you could, as it relates to the dedication of paving Old Victory Road and also the sewer capacity. So we have been meeting with the applicant at a staff level since March, maybe. And we've had a lot of discussions about both of these items. As it relates to Old Victory Road, we've asked the applicant, it needs to be a part of this. The dedication and paving of the rest of Old Victory Road needs to be a part of this subdivision. And we have asked the applicant for a timetable on when that would be done, and we have not received that. As it relates to the sewer capacity concern, the most recent engineering comment back from Grand Park was that Grand Park understands that stretch of sewer could be nearing the 50% full capacity trigger and will upgrade the line when actual observation confirms the pipe is 50% full, as is industry standard care of practice. None of the construction documents that we've received to date have any indication of this, of the bore.
Thank you, Catherine. Sorry to interrupt.
I'd just like a little more clarification.
Bob Ganusi.
Yes, this is Bob Ganusi. Could you clarify what you just said for us, Kent? Because what I think I heard was that going all the way back to the original documents, as you said, looking at everything in its entirety, these bubbles, as we will call them, that were put on a piece of paper way back when, in 2003, 2005, they were there to indicate where likely planned development would occur. And so, and as the developer has said, they mostly stuck to those bubbles. That some of the bubbles have been malleable and they've kind of pushed around a little bit, but pretty much the bubbles have stayed about where they were on all the drawings in the entirety if you look at everything. So I guess my question is, when we put those bubbles on way back when, it would seem to me that it was at least contemplated that the 23W, the open space, it was desirable to have it as pretty much a contiguous one entity, not being carved up to be put in all these little bubbles. So I guess if you're going back and looking at things, I would ask, well, okay, if the intent was way back when that these bubbles could move around, they could be malleable, they could get a little larger, they could get a little smaller, but was it the intent to take those bubbles and carve out pieces of 23W? I'm asking for, did I understand you right? That in your opinion, that wouldn't be allowed, or that shouldn't be allowed.
That's my interpretation.
Okay. Thank you. That's what I heard. I just wanted to be sure.
Philip Vanderdale, do you have any comments?
No, I don't.
I have, one of my big concerns is that we are in the process of trying to put a conservation easement on those areas, that 23W that was intended as open space. Currently, we're in litigation, so I can't approve something that encroaches on that property at this time until we are able to finalize the boundaries of that conservation easement. We need the apartments, and I like the drawings and I think that they fit. I too agree that we can't be pulling pieces out of the open space to fill in, add additional open space. It would be great if you guys could do that anyway, but whatever, however, that's your call. And you've already said it's not a problem taking, pulling 2W4 off. And I think the big difference on this is, again, that puts an extra 8.4 acres right into the middle of that land that the town's negotiating with you on, or, you know, in litigation on, or whatever. So I can't support the application at this time. And I'm sorry that you weren't willing to kind of address or recognize the importance of that to our community and to at least this board member and planning commission member. Because if you had and had left that infringement off of that, we would probably be approving it tonight with some conditions. We always have conditions. So, so I can't vote to approve it tonight.
Well, Katie,
Yeah.
I talk to a lot of the townspeople on a regular basis,
Mhm.
mostly shop owners, restaurant owners, the major taxpayers for the community. I mean, we have residential taxes, but the commercial taxes are really pay for our services. And I understand that Meadow's important to a lot of people, but it's not important to the people that are trying to build a business. It's not important to the people that are trying to find housing to live in. I asked how many people really cared about the Meadow. Maybe 2 out of 20 knew what Meadow I was talking about, much less cared. I understand the owners of the Meadow care, the people that live around it. I understand a few town council members, trustees care about the Meadow. All of these people have the chance to buy the Meadow, own the Meadow, develop the Meadow, not develop the Meadow. They chose not to.
No, it's always been.
Nope, they
We
chose
don't
not
get
to. It was for sale at different times. People could have bought it. The 204 units, apartment units, are way more valuable to the community than 204 more condos. If we open space contiguous or broken up the way he has it, I don't think the open space makes a difference to the overall community. The 204 units makes a huge difference to the community. That's the difference of getting people out of rental units, long-term rental units, and moving into nicer units, which allow the workers to move into the lower level rental units, which they can't get into because there's none available. So we're sitting here arguing over open space, and we got 1,000 people living in the woods. If people wonder what I care about getting people out of the woods. I care about our businesses being successful. Name one business in town that doesn't have a help wanted sign in front of it. Anyone? Right. We don't have places for people to live. So I vote for this. I think we should approve the apartments and move it forward.
The difficult thing is this whole package isn't just the apartments.
The difficult thing is putting open space above places to live. In a county that has 90% open space.
There was a submittal back in April or May. It didn't encroach into the open space. Do you remember that?
Philip, your microphone's not on.
Oh, there you go.
So there was a submittal back in April or May of this year.
Mhm.
Same 204 units that didn't encroach into the open space. I don't know if you guys remember that or not, but
Where that's encroaching to the open space, you got a road going through the middle
so
of it.
what I'm saying is this is a doable plan without moving it into the open space. And we are in litigation on this. I am 100% in favor of 204 units because one of my business, your business doesn't have a help wanted sign on the front.
Yeah,
of
it does. It's just not on the front door.
Well, I don't see it. You said on the front of your business.
Go
I
to
don't see it.
go to
My
Indeed.
business has a
Okay.
help wanted sign on the front of it. So
Right.
I'm in favor of 204 long-term rentals. And I know this is doable without moving it into the open space because you guys submitted the plan to this planning commission earlier this year. So, and we are in litigation. So I'm not going to be in favor of, this is going to have to go to the board. And
Ken, can you summarize the resolution that was in the packet?
I don't have it in front of me. The proposed resolution is a resolution concerning the application of Grand Park Development for approval of an FPD amendment and preliminary plat for the Willows Apartments at Grand Park. Essentially, it's a recommendation of a push up on both applications to the Board of Trustees and for their consideration and a recommendation of denial from the Planning Commission to the trustees. And the reasons given within the resolution are essentially a carbon copy of those that were recited in staff's briefing memo to the Planning Commission.
A question. Do we need to put the language recommending denial into the resolved part of the resolution down at the bottom?
I think it is.
Kent's taking a look.
Sam, I'll just read the resolution portion at the end of the document. Therefore, be resolved by the Planning Commission of the Town of Fraser. Number one, resolved that pursuant to the provisions of said section 19.1.210F of the Fraser Municipal Code, the Planning Commission hereby pushes up for the final determination by the Fraser Board of Trustees both the final plan development plan, FPDP amendment, and preliminary plat for the Willows Apartments at Grand Park. And further resolve that staff's recommendations set forth above are incorporated into the decision of the Planning Commission to push this matter up and are to be forwarded to the Fraser Board of Trustees for consideration in connection with their consideration of the final plan development plan, FPDP amendment, and the preliminary plat for Willows Apartments at Grand Park application.
Okay, thank you. And I guess my question was, do we need to be explicit about the recommended denial for the part of the Planning Commission, in addition to staff recommendation?
I think it's the commissioner's choice. They can explicitly recommend denial or push up to the Board of Trustees. Or both.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking is do both.
Are you making a motion, Sam?
Not yet, just asking for clarification.
Sorry to push this.
Yeah, and I have the same question. Could we just vote to push it to the town board without recommending denial?
Yes.
That would be my motion.
So could I? ask a
Okay, yeah,
question?
you may, yeah, there's a motion on the table. Let's have some discussion. We can discuss, right, before a second?
Okay,
Bob?
my discussion is, I want to circle back to what Philip said. With any of these, and you said it too, Katie, it's like any of these applications, even if we recommend them, we don't recommend them without conditions.
He's supposed to be out of the discussion.
Would it change?
Oh, I couldn't tell if they were asking for you to talk in your microphone because your ways back.
Would it change any members of the Planning Commission's minds if we pushed it up to the town Board of Trustees with certain recommendations that, and I'm thinking you take the 23W slivers out, because Philip made a point that, the project was doable without carving them off. And the developers already said he would take the 2W.3 and the 2W.4 off the plan document. So if we could make recommendations that we push up to the Board of Trustees with certain recommendations, taking out the 23W slivers, taking out the 2W.3 and 2W.4, would that simplify things? We'd still be asking the Board of Trustees to make the final decision, but we'd be suggesting to them what we'd like to see to make it more palatable to us as the planning commission.
Okay.
Now, if the developer is not willing to make those changes, then I guess he goes and presents his case to the Board of Trustees, and that's it.
Well, I just want to remind you that the letter from Kent Whitmer went out on October 1st with these, what we felt were deficiencies in the application. The applicant was given until October 14th to resubmit the documents, and nothing was changed.
Yeah, and I,
So there is a motion on the, go ahead, Sam.
yeah, I hear what Bob is saying. I think that overcomplicates things. The planning commission only ever really recommends things to the board, that these kind of things. So recommending denial does not bind the board to deny. That's the planning commission's mind, if it so votes. Overcomplicating it by trying to fiddle with the conditions, I think at this point, given what Catherine just said, just muddies the waters. And that's my input. I would recommend.
Okay, so right now Margaret has a motion on.
Second.
Can you repeat your motion, please, Margaret?
If
you could talk.
I'm trying.
Hands
The motion was to push this up to the Board of Trustees without any additional recommendation of denial or approval, just to push it to the Board of Trustees. That's my motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, Parnell Quinn seconded that motion. How about a voice vote for yays or nays?
Yay.
Okay,
I'm a no.
is that a Sam no?
Sam, no.
Okay,
I'm a yay.
Philip, yes.
Yeah, kick it up to the board.
And I've recused myself from the vote.
Aye, okay, we have a president.
And I'm a yay.
And I say yay, move it up to the board. Did everybody?
It's everybody.
Okay, motion carries.
He should have recused himself from discussion as well.
Thank you. So. My miles of piles. Okay, so that takes care of that topic for tonight.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, we'll see you then. Yeah, you're welcome. And hopefully you can
And I won't.
bring
know-
us
I
something
won't
where
be
we can
allowing
say
public
yes.
Comments to come back after.
Okay.
We've closed the public
Okay,
hearing.
I know, because you're a hard,
I am a hard.
runs a tough show. Okay, so is there any other business that any of the commissioners would like to bring up? No? Open forum? Future agenda
We're
items.
doing them right now. We are.
She just asked for open forum. Is there anyone on the Zoom call that?
There's anybody on the Zoom call that would like to comment for open forum, please raise your hand.
Move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourn at 8:59.